How much fiber do you really need to be really healthy? It's actually a super important question, but before I answer, let's talk a little about what fiber is and what it is not. The truly ironical thing about fiber is that it is the part of your food that your body cannot digest. In fact, by some definitions, that is exactly what fiber is. It's the stuff your body can't digest. Yes! One of the most important things you need to eat is the part of your food that you don't metabolize. It doesn't turn into energy. It doesn't turn into muscle or tissue. It doesn't turn into bones or fat or glycogen or really much of anything other than what you leave behind when it leaves your behind. And because your body doesn't absorb or metabolize fiber, many, if not most, nutritionists don't consider it to be an actual nutrient. And I guess that makes sense in a way since there is no literal nutrition in it, but notice I said most nutritionists because there are many who do count it as a macronutrient. Everyone agrees that the three basic macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs, and there are a few who count fiber as a fourth macronutrient because even though it doesn't actually have any actual nutrition that your actual body actually absorbs, it is utterly vital to your health and by some measures, every bit as important as the carbs, fats, and proteins. Regardless of where you land on that question, it is important to put a really high value on the part of your food that might not seem like it's making much of a contribution. And, we've all probably had a few coworkers like that, I suppose, right? Okay, so now you know what it doesn't do. It doesn't store energy. It doesn't build muscle, bones, or cells of any kind. It doesn't run your brain. It doesn't run your muscles. So if it doesn't do any of those things, then what does it do? Does it, do anything? Well, even though we can't digest fiber, you know who can? Microbes. All those happy bugs we talked about in the healthy gut video, aka your gut biome. All the microscopic organisms that, as it turns out, outnumber the human cells in your body and are responsible for everything from your digestive function to your immune system and probably even your mood and outlook. They thrive on fiber. They love it. They need it. In fact, if you don't have enough fiber in your gut, it's impossible to support a healthy microbiome, meaning it might be impossible to be a fully healthy person. Now, when you hear the term prebiotic, that can mean a number of things that encourage the flourishing of your flora, but for the most part, the preeminent prebiotic is dietary fiber. So if you want to buy a lot of expensive supplements, be my guest. But as for me, I'll just have a banana. Now, just to review, I will post a link to my video on the microbiome in the description, so make sure to check that out. So perhaps first and foremost, the main reason you need fiber is for the care and feeding of all those marvelous happy bugs without which we cannot thrive. Seems important, yeah? So what else? Well, now we get to have that conversation because one of the main side effects of insufficient fiber is that you have bad poop, and nobody likes that. If you are having any kind of issues with your poop, fiber is a likely fix. If you're constipated, or if you have loose stool, or if you're irregular, or if you have a lot of cramping, there's a good chance that fiber could help you. Now, to explain that correctly, it's important to note that there are different types of fiber. Really, though, when choosing your food, you don't have to worry about it. When you're eating, it's okay to just think of fiber as fiber, but since you're watching this channel, I know you're maybe a little more intelligent and curious than most people, so let's nerd out on it just a little bit because we think it's fun. Now, that being said, what I'm about to tell you is still going to be somewhat simplified. There are, in fact, a lot of different things that we call fiber, and they don't all do the same thing or behave in the same ways. Truth is, some of them aren't even digestible to our microbiome. But if you take away the basic points here, you'll be a pretty informed and healthy person. So let's get on with it. Most of the time you hear people lumping fiber into two categories, soluble and insoluble. Soluble fiber can be dissolved into water while insoluble fiber cannot, and they perform different roles. Insoluble fiber promotes mucus production in the colon, which creates bulking. And I'm going to just assume you know what is meant by bulking, and suffice to say that bulking is a good thing, right? Insoluble fiber, it also sort of acts like a brush that kind of sweeps things through you. So insoluble fiber bulks up your stool and also helps keep the pipes clean. In a good way. Soluble fibers can also promote bulking, though more specifically they promote thickening, because they tend to be viscous when absorbed by water, and since they can be absorbed by water, they have some other magic powers. They can hold and retain water and thus move it through your system, which, simply put, makes it easier to go. At the same time, the viscosity of soluble fiber also slows down the speed of digestive emptying, which can help you feel full longer. Some types of soluble fiber create a lining in the digestive tract that regulates the uptake of carbohydrates, and as we mentioned in the video on carbs, that's what lowers the glycemic index of fruits in comparison with simple sugars. So, fiber slows things down in some ways and speeds them up in others. In a way, that's kind of the magic of fiber. It makes things just right. It's like the Goldilocks of poop. Another super important function of soluble fiber is that it lowers your LDL cholesterol. LDL, by the way, is the bad cholesterol. The good cholesterol is HDL. If it helps you remember, you can think of HDL as healthy and LDL as lousy. You thought I had another song, didn't you? You should be so lucky. Fiber also acts as an anti-inflammatory and an anti-carcinogen, though it's still not completely clear as to how or why, so I won't pretend to know. One more miscellaneous trivia factoid. Fiber used to be called roughage, and I still rather like that word. Very descriptive, roughage. Makes it sound like a good, sturdy colon scraper. Okay, so I promised that I was going to tell you how much fiber you need to be healthy, and as always, I try to keep my promises. The answer is, drum roll please. Oh God, I hate that drum roll. Anyway, the correct amount of fiber you need is more than you're getting now. To put a number on it, 25 to 30 grams per day. The average American currently gets about 15 grams, and that's optimistic. Now remember what we said about averages the other day, though. But even in light of that, we can safely say that most people in the modern world are severely lacking in fiber. You might remember me talking before about the Hadzabe, a population of folks in Tanzania who live about as close to our old hunter-gatherer lifestyle as anyone alive. They have an extremely low incidence of many of the diseases in our world that are sometimes referred to as elective because they are often associated with lifestyle. Those include metabolic disorder, including autoimmune diseases and obesity, heart disease, and cancer. Now, I know I've often said that correlation is not causality, but it is worth noting that the Hadza diet typically includes up to 100 grams of fiber per day, and their gut flora has twice as many species of happy bugs as ours. Now, that being said, they aren't without health issues. Because of their isolation, for instance, they have very little immunity to many infectious diseases, but that's not related to their diets. Now, I'm not telling you to start eating 100 grams of fiber per day. In fact, I would say you absolutely should not do that. If an average Westerner were to suddenly start eating 100 grams of fiber per day, it would not go well. In fact, it would really mess you up. You would be in a lot of distress, and you might even end up not absorbing nutrients from your food properly. But you can and should start working toward that 25 to 30 gram mark. Do it gradually, and drink more water as you do. If you're eating a low-fiber diet right now and were to decide tomorrow to start jamming in 30 grams a day all of a sudden, you would be extremely uncomfortable. So ease in. And again, it ain't really that hard. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Get away from processed foods, including processed foods that are organic or gluten-free or keto-friendly or any of those other buzzwords. Now, speaking of buzzwords in marketing, fiber has definitely become one of those buzzwords you see plastered on processed food packaging. Now, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush here, but you're probably better off just eating real food. Don't buy a boxed dinner just because the label says it's a great source of fiber. Try a banana or an avocado or a handful of nuts. Of all the many, many lists of high-fiber foods I've read, not a single one of them has included processed food. None. Zero. Zilcho. Foods rich in fiber will also fill you up better, providing you with a sense of fullness and satiety. In addition to fruits and vegetables, beans, lentils, and other legumes are a veritable powerhouse of fiber. Whole grains are great, as are nuts, and even mushrooms have some fiber in them. But as I always like to say, it all comes back to leafy greens. I hope you're also noticing a kind of a guilt by association happening here. All these foods that are rich in fiber are also the same usual suspects for all of our other wonderful phytonutrients, minerals, and vitamins, and all the other goodies. One totally valid reason to up your fiber intake is that you're likely to just get a lot of other healthy things as a matter of course. I know there are people out there who aren't fans of those things, and if you watch my channel, you'll know that I'm hesitant to say that people are flat out wrong, because nutrition is such a young science, and that's just not who I am. But this might be an exception. I would strongly urge you to be really wary of people who steer you away from foods that are rich in fiber. Now, admittedly, I probably pick on carnivores a bit too much, but there are two things I can say about a carnivore diet that are demonstrably true. 1, there is no fiber in meat. None. Zero. Zilcho. And 2, there are no carnivore blue zones. None. Zero. Zilcho. I know there are people out there who love to make YouTube videos of themselves gorging out on raw meat and organs, and again, painting with a broad brush here. Much of that seems like spectacle to me. If you want to promote a healthy food choice, hey, that's great. Good for you. But there's a point where it seems like some of these folks are just doing it for the attention and the clicks. Yes, there are some people with doctorates out there who promote the carnivore diet, but the fact is, you can find people with an alphabet soup after their names to promote just about anything. And there are documented examples of actual dietitians being on the payroll of processed food companies. It happens. Now, does that mean that they're all wrong or that diet doesn't matter? No, not by any means. Try my cookie box experiment from the first nutrition video in this playlist and you'll see for yourself. I try to aggregate things I learn, and the number of nutritionists who recommend a high-fiber diet vastly outnumber the carnivores, though there are some very compelling arguments in the carny camp. That being said, I think it's fair to say that people who think fiber is unnecessary are the outliers. Now, one argument I often hear against eating plants is that plants have evolved defenses against being eaten. But as it turns out, animals have also evolved defenses against being eaten. They're called legs. Seriously, sit in nature sometime with your mouth open and see how many deer and rabbits just come along and jump into your mouth. Animals are no less or more evolved to being eaten than plants. In my recent video on protein, one of our viewers posted an extremely thoughtful comment on carnivorous eating, and if you're interested in unpacking that topic further, I would suggest that you check out our conversation on that video. I don't want to dwell on the topic too much here since this video is supposed to be on fiber, but I do want to point out that a lot of influencers promoting various diets tend to be a bit younger than I am. And when you're young, you can do a lot of things to your body. If only I could tell you all the things I did to my body when I was young, but I don't really want to encourage a lot of that behavior. And frankly, I'm not even sure what the statute of limitations is on some of those stunts, so we'll just have to leave it at that. Okay, so now you might be wondering if it'd be a good idea to supplement your diet with psyllium husk or other commercial fiber supplements. Well, I'm not a physician, and even if I were, I have no idea what your particular needs are. If you suspect that you could benefit from increasing your fiber intake, of course your first course of action should be to introduce more fiber-rich foods into your diet and work your way up to that 25 to 30 gram mark. I'm of the opinion that it's always best to start with food. Your body really is built to eat food. We didn't evolve to eat supplements. And if you're currently eating a low-fiber diet, then it'd be inadvisable to suddenly and drastically start loading up on 30 grams per day. As I said, notch it up incrementally, and if after getting yourself up to 25 or 30 grams a day and you're still having issues, then I would suggest talking to a healthcare professional before opting for supplements. Now, of course, you need to make your own decisions, and for all I know, your doctor might indeed tell you to start eating psyllium husk, and that would be great. It's certainly better than a lot of other possibilities. But all I'm saying is start with food and use your head. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be healthy enough to catch my next video. But for now, it is time to wrap up this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Ciao.